Hotep, Black Power, Assalamu alaikum, Shalom, peace be unto you, Alafia, all laws, black laws for all black people. Welcome to the new Black Panther Party's weekly or Monday night weekly liberation school, or the Black Panther Liberation School. I bring you greetings on behalf of the National Chairman of the new Black Panther Party for Self-Defense, as well as the founder and Executive Director for Black Lawyers for Justice, Attorney Dr. Malik Zulu-Shabazz, who many of us refer to as the Attorney at War, Dr. Malik Zulu-Shabazz. Tonight, family, we're going to be, first of all, just to let you know, the new Black Panther Party, as well as Black Lawyers for Justice under Attorney Shabazz's leadership, are both headquartered in Washington, D.C. Tonight, family, we are going to be discussing, or the lesson for tonight will be the 10-point platform of the new Black Panther Party for Self-Defense, which of course was derived and borrowed from the original Black Panther Party for Self-Defense, founded by brothers Bobby Seale and Dr. Huey P. Newton. Go Bob. Hold 1 second, family. I'm adjusting this here because I don't want the table to shake. Okay, anyway, I'm Dashan Farad. Welcome. I'm a journalist, writer, and I'm also a part of the Black Panther Liberation School. And so, of course, I'm one of the instructors that you see on a weekly basis. I've been teaching the class consistently for the past several weeks. I would say for the past several months. Yeah, I would say the past several weeks to the past several months. But anyway, tonight we're discussing the 10-point platform. Now, family, keep in mind, you may ask the question, for those of you who are just now tuning in, what is the 10-point platform? If you study the various nationalist organizations, beginning with the Garvey movement and the Nation of Islam and the Provisional Government for the Republic of New Africa, they all have a platform that they adhere to, okay? You can find something similar on the back of the Nation of Islam's newspapers of the Muhammad Speaks of the Final Call, whichever minister you're under, and it's titled as What Do the Muslims Want? Okay, that's their version of a 10-point platform. Of course, it's 12 points. What the Muslims believe, what the Muslims want. Well, remember, as we stated before, and as I've said before teaching this class, the Black Panther Party is an amalgamation of many revolutionary Black organizations, primarily the Garveyite movement, or the Universal Negro Improvement Association, which was founded by the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey. And keep in mind that just about every Black organization that came after Garvey, whether they be nationalists or integrationists, borrowed from Garvey. But the Panther Party had also borrowed heavily from the Nation of Islam in terms of its structure, in terms of its platform. And so regardless of which formation you're with, whether you be affiliated with the original Panther Party, you might be a little left-leaning or a little communist Marxist-leaning or socialist-leaning, or the different formations of the new Black Panther Party, in which you are more African-centered leaning, more Pan-Africanist nationalist leaning, Black revolutionary nationalist leaning, you're going to adhere to a 10-point platform. So what distinguishes the platform of the new Black Panther Party from the original Panther Party is that it is more cultural, it is more African-centered, if you would. And you'll see this throughout as we go through it. So I'm going to take you tonight from points 1 through 10. I'm adjusting my seat, family. I'm making sure that everything is good so I can be right and exact. Hold 1 second. And so in the next few seconds, I'm going to pull up the 10-point platform. But once again, if you're just now tuning in, what distinguishes us, or what distinguishes the platform of the new Black Panther Party from the original party, is that this platform is more updated, it's more African-centered, and also, of course, you'll find a touch of Nation of Islam lingo. If you, I don't want to say rhetoric. Well, actually, I can say rhetoric. Oftentimes, when we hear rhetoric, we think that rhetoric is a bad thing, but no, rhetoric just means of the line that you're toting verbally. Okay, that's why they have a course on many college campuses called rhetorician. Okay, Brother Khalid Abdul Muhammad, who was the late chair of the new Black Panther Party for Self-Defense, he was a master of rhetoric. He knew how to use words to get messages across. So whenever someone says someone is using rhetoric, it is not always a bad thing. But what I was explaining is that within the platform of the new Black Panther Party, you'll find Garveyite rhetoric, original Panther Party rhetoric, of course, and Nation of Islam rhetoric, Qaeda movement rhetoric, cultural nationalism, inwoven within the new Black Panther Party. So I'm going to pull up the 10-point platform right now. And Brother Mintu, please let me know if people are having a difficult time hearing me. I hope that these acoustics in this classroom are not disturbing anyone. One second, I'm pulling up this here, okay?
You're loud and clear, brother.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Okay, I just pulled up. Those of you that are tuning in, just to let you know, I had to make sure that I could have access to the Facebook feed. But right now, I'm pulling up the 10-point platform. Here we go. Number one of what the new Black Panthers believe. We want freedom. We want the power to practice self-determination and to determine the destiny of our community and the Black nation. Self-determination in Swahili is referred to as kujichagulia. Okay, so here you have right now, as I mentioned, the cultural nationalism or the Black cultural nationalism that is inwoven within the new Black Panther Party. Now, the terms kujichagulia was introduced to us by Dr. Maulana Karenga, a Black cultural nationalist. I've had the honor of interviewing him several times. I just interviewed him last month on a broadcast that I did for ASCAC North. ASCAC is the Association for the Study of Classical African Civilization. Dr. Karenga is one of the founders of ASCAC. He, along with Dr. John Henry Clark, Dr. Leonard Jeffries, Professor James Small, Dr. Anthony Browder, these brothers are cultural nationalists, okay? Black cultural nationalists. Now, what is that? Okay, Dr. Maulana Karenga formed an organization in the 60s along with Kwanzaa, before Kwanzaa, called the Qaeda movement, or US. Okay, US, it stood for us. Some people say it stood for United Slaves. No, it stood for us as Black people. And along with that, US came the Qaeda movement. And so Dr. Karenga and his associates, they practiced what was referred to as Black cultural nationalism. Now, cultural nationalism had already existed in Europe. So cultural nationalism says, okay, you practice the principles of your particular nation. So if you're English, you practice the principles of the English, or if you're British, you practice the principles of the British. If you're Irish, you practice the principles of the Irish. And so if you're Italian, you practice the customs of the Italians and so forth. So what Dr. Karenga did was he introduced, or helped to introduce, Black cultural nationalism. Now, what is that? Okay, we have Black nationalism or Black revolutionary nationalism, which the original Panthers were. Okay, that meant that they believed in Black people controlling the politics, controlling our resources. Of course, before the Panther Party, we saw that with Marcus Mosiah Garvey in the UNIA and other groups, of course, that came before him. All right, Pan-Africanism. Okay, Black nationalism is that you anything that is in the best interest of Black people, you support. Ownership. That's why nationalism is in the nation, is in the name of nationalism. Okay, Black people owning land, owning property, controlling our politics, controlling the economics, which is good. Cultural nationalism says that before we can do any of that, or along with that, we have to return back to the traditions of our African ancestors. That's what Black cultural nationalism is. And so you'll notice that the original Panther parties, although they were pro-Black, Assata Shakur argues in her autobiography that if you notice, most of the East Coast Panthers had Islamic or Swahili names like Zaid Shakur, Assata Shakur, Fini Shakur, Zaid Malik, Daruba bin Wahad. Okay, most of these sisters and brothers had African or Swahili and Islamic names, whereas on the West Coast, most of them still had European names. Okay, Assata Shakur had argued in her autobiography that many of the original Panthers could tell you. Am I still there, brother? Okay, I'm sorry. I thought I got disconnected. I put my phone do not disturb, and somebody called in anyway. Hold on, let me pull this back up. Anyway, Assata argued in her book, her autobiography, that many of the original Panthers, they can tell you, they were pro-Black, but they can tell you about Marxism, Leninism, communism, socialism, but they didn't know the first thing about African culture. Okay, whereas Dr. Maulana Karenga and most Black cultural nationalists, you would see them wearing African garb. But if you notice, most of the original Panthers were not into African culture. And unfortunately, that was somewhat represented, but poorly represented in Melvin Van Peebles' movie Panther, in which he showed Huey and them clowning Maulana Karenga. Now, as Brother Khalid has stated, Brother Khalid didn't like that scene, okay, because that movie had clowned the cultural nationalists, okay? Keep in mind that many of the original Panthers, although they were nationalists, some people have argued, such as Baba Zaid Muhammad, that the original Panthers were revolutionary integrationists, okay, because they believed in forming alliances with white organizations, Asian organizations, but also many of them believed in interracial dating, okay? Black cultural nationalists don't believe in interracial dating, okay? And of course, we've seen our brother for the past 3 to 4 or 5 years, Dr. Umar Johnson, he's spoken against interracial dating regarding Black people. But Black cultural nationalists, they don't believe in that. They believe that Black people should be married to Black people, okay? And so you see this infused within this philosophy, this African-centered philosophy, or this cultural nationalism infused within the new Black Panther Party. So I'm going to go on. The last part of number 1 actually drives this. It actually drives it home. We believe in the spiritual high moral code. Okay, somebody keeps calling me, and I've already put the phone on Do Not Disturb. I don't know what that's about. Okay, family, I got to pull this up again. Anyway, we believe in the spiritual high moral code of our ancestors. Okay, what was the spiritual high moral code of our ancestors, as in our Black ancestors, our African ancestors? Okay, we believe in the truths of the Bible, Quran, and other sacred texts and writings. We believe in Ma'at, that comes out of the Nile Valley. When I asked the question, what was the high moral code of our ancestors? It began in the Nile Valley with Ma'at, of the book of Ptah-hotep, okay, which many scholars, Black scholars, have referred to the book of Ptah-hotep as the oldest book in the world. The Nile Valley, as Dr. John Henry Clark referred to it, was the first, no, he didn't refer to it as the Nile Valley, but he referred to the Nile Valley as the world's first super information highway, okay, because that river, which is the longest river in the world, that's where, Black civilization had emerged. And of course, when people learned how to swim, when people began developing boats, there was constant contact between the people of that area. Always remember that civilizations are always going to emerge around water. Okay, so the Nile Valley is a very fertile valley. In the Nation of Islam and the Nation of Gods and Earths, they refer to the Nile Valley as the best part of the planet. And they say that the home, Earth, belongs to the original man and woman, Black people, but we chose the best part of the planet for ourselves. That's the Nile Valley. Okay, and of course, Dr. Yusuf Ben Yakinen has also spoken on Nile Valley civilization. Dr. Anthony Browder wrote a book nearly 30 years ago called Nile Valley Civilization. It's still in print. Dr. Anthony Browder, who I've had the honor of interviewing recently, well, not too recently, but anyway. So Ma'at, when we say we believe in Ma'at, Ma'at is a principle, Kemetic principle, or an Egyptian principle, which the proper name is Kemet, which means balance. Ma'at is oftentimes depicted as a goddess with wings, and she's supposed to represent balance, okay? It's no accident that in the white man's world, when you see justice, how is justice depicted? Justice is always depicted as a woman. Well, the oldest representation so far on record of justice is a woman, Ma'at, a Black woman, Ma'at, spelled M-A-A-T, M-A-A-T. And you may hear people, many of us within the Afrocentric or the African-centered community refer to Ma'atic balance, okay? Ma'atic balance. So in number 1 of our 10-point platform, it says we believe in Ma'at and the principles of Nguzo Saba. Now, you heard me mention Dr. Karenga a few minutes ago, and I mentioned self-determination. Dr. Karenga introduced the Swahili word for self-determination, which is Kuja Chakalia, when he created Kwanzaa in 1966, 1967. Please forgive me if anyone from the Kawaida movement is watching, especially Dr. Karenga. Okay, the Nguzo in the Nguzo, not Nguzo, but Nguzo Saba in Swahili is a set of principles. Those 7 principles of Kwanzaa are referred to as the Nguzo Saba. And so Dr. Maulana Karenga has instructed us to follow these principles throughout the year. The Kwanzaa principles, yes, We emphasize them during Kwanzaa from December 26th to January 1st, but we are encouraged to practice these principles, which represent a high moral code, as we just spoke about throughout the year, along with Ma'at. We believe that Black people will not be free until we are able to determine our divine destiny. See, that's a part of the self-determination. Every community has the right to determine its own destiny. And unfortunately, in the past 500 years, some would say longer, some would say in the past 1,000 years, okay, some would say over 1,000 years, the destiny of the global Black community has been in the hands of non-Black people. Of course, speaking about slavery, beginning with the non-Black Arab slave trade, and then the European slave trade, which of course, it's been stated, S.C. Anderson stated in his book, African Holocaust for Beginners, or Black Holocaust for Beginners, African Holocaust 101, S.C. Anderson had mentioned, and Dr. John Henry Clark has stated the same thing, that that Arabs institutionalized chattel slavery, but Europeans internationalized it, okay? The Arab slave trade that took place, or the East African slave trade, it took place on the coast of East Africa and what is popularly referred to as the so-called Middle East or the Arab world, okay? But when the when the Europeans got into it, it became international, okay? We got sent to Europe, we got sent to the Americas, South America, North America, we were sent everywhere, okay? That Holocaust, which we refer to a little bit in the 10-point platform, we call that the Ma'afa, the Mangamiso Ma'afa, meaning that a terrible tragedy was taking place, but it was intentional. Okay, we're going to get a little bit into that too. Point number 2, we want full employment for our people, and we demand the dignity to do for ourselves what we have begged the white man to do for us. Here we have the do for self philosophy coming out of the Garveyite movement, coming out of Elijah Muhammad's movement. But keep in mind now, even though the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is credited with the words do for self, and Marcus Garvey is also credited with the concept, there had already been Black people before that that encouraged Black people to, Black economics, to do for self. Before that, I'm talking about since the days of slavery with the freedmen societies. Okay, emphasizing that Black people put our money together and do for self. So, I would say that Marcus Garvey, the Honorable Marcus Garvey and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad introduced it on a national level, okay, because they were able to mass organize literally millions of people around the concept of doing for self, millions of Black people around the concept of doing for self. Okay, so that's where this comes from. Okay, so we shouldn't be begging, we shouldn't be begging. Hold one second. Okay, brother, 1 second. Sorry about that, family. Somebody keeps calling me, and I put the phone already on Do Not Disturb. I don't know what's going on. Hold 1 second, family. 1 second. I'm seeing what's going on. Okay, it's on Do Not Disturb. I don't know why they're. Hold 1 second, family. I have an idea. 1 second. Here we go. All right. I see what I had to do, family. 1 second. Okay. So the concept of doing for self is nothing new. The thing that gets me whenever I go to, I'm a journalist, okay, and an activist. And I can't tell you how many times I can't tell you how many times I've traveled across the country covering conventions that are put on by educated Black professionals. And oftentimes they're always complaining about the poverty in the Black community, lack of jobs, or complaining about what the Republicans are doing. And then when you ask them, well, what about doing for self? What about building institutions or separating from America? You get looked at like you're crazy. Many Black people look at this concept as if though it is something new. Okay, now we've only started not doing for self in the past 50 years, okay, with the advent of integration, the Civil Rights Act. Once we started spending our money with white folks, we closed our own institutions and neglected our own institutions, okay? So what ended up happening was we closed our institutions, and as a result, whenever a crisis takes place, we find ourselves becoming leeches or parasites to another community. Okay, supermarkets, we don't have major supermarkets to the degree that we should have. We don't have major clothing stores, major clothing outlets. And then what ends up happening is the few businesses that we do have, the small ones, they have to overcharge people to be able to cover the rent because of lack of support. We believe that since the white man has kept us deaf, dumb, and blind and used every dirty trick in the book to stand in the way of our freedom and independence, that we should be gainfully employed until such time we can employ and provide for ourselves. Now, family, now you might say, well, wait a minute, that contradicts what you just said about begging the white man. No, it's not. Please keep in mind that most of the wealth that you see in America, most of the wealth that we have seen over the past 2 centuries, and even before that, before America, was accumulated as a result of Black slave labor. America was made wealthy as a result of Black people. Read Dr. Claude Anderson's book, Black Labor, White Wealth, or White Wealth, Black Labor. He goes into that in detail, how America became rich as a result of our slave labor. Okay, so actually getting a job from someone outside of, from a white establishment, or even from those establishments that are not white, but have benefited, who have come to this country, no, actually is actually owed to us. If you pardon the expression, it's actually owed to us, okay? We have a right to certain wealth in this country. Actually, we have a right to all the wealth in America. We believe further in power in the hands of the people, wealth in the hands of the people, arms in the hands of the people. See, that's that original Panther Party philosophy. That's the socialism of the original Panther Party. Of course, now keep in mind, socialism is nothing new, just like communism is nothing new. Communism and socialism were both borrowed from African concepts, okay? Especially communism. Karl Marx has studied African culture tremendously. In African culture, they practice what is referred to as communalism. That's where he and Lenin got it from. They studied African communalism, and that is, in essence, what gave birth to communism. So the concept of power being in the hands of wealth being in the hands of the people, Dr. King had said that. Remember, Martin Luther King had said there needs to be a radical redistribution of the wealth. Number 3, we want tax exemption and an end to robbery of the Black nation by the capitalists. We want an end to the capitalistic domination of Africa in all of its forms: imperialism, criminal settler colonialism, neocolonialism, racism, sexism, Zionism, apartheid, and artificial borders. Now, family, there's something that Dr. John Henry Clark had stated many times. Everything that people of African descent do, and when we say of African descent, we mean Black people. The term African, when you're around Black nationalists, or you're around those of us who are African-centered or Black cultural nationalists, we use the term African and Black to mean the same. When we say African, we're not just speaking about our sisters and brothers on the African continent. We're talking about those of us who will be considered Black, all Black people, okay? Dr. Clark said that wherever people of African descent are located, anything we do, any program we do, any initiative, it should always be organized around Africa, or Africa should be its focus. This is why Dr. Clark stated Pan-Africanism or perish. Because you may ask yourself a question: why would the new Black Panther Party, African Americans, be concerned about what's taking place in Africa? Because as Dr. Clark said and others, that is our center. Okay, that's why he said everything we do should be centered around Africa. Okay, we should have Africa as its focus. Okay, I want you to do me a favor. There are 3 books that I want you to read. Okay. This screen keeps going dark. I don't know why it does that, okay? The first book, The World in Africa by Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois. In this book, he explains to you, this is actually one of his later books. He wrote this book in the 40s, okay? Yeah, he wrote this book in the 40s. He was up in age when he wrote this book. He explains Africa's vast resources, and also another book that he wrote, I forgot the name of it. He actually explained, and I'm glad that somebody brought this up 2 weeks ago when discussing this whole Ukraine-Russian crisis. Okay, Ukraine and Russia, European countries fighting against each other is nothing new. It's amazing to me that whenever we talk about Black on Black crime, okay, we talk about the African slave trade, the first thing that people want to do is throw up in our face that Black people enslaved other Black people, but you never use that argument with Europeans. Okay, World War I, World War II, there were countries right next to each other in Europe killing each other, but no one ever says that white people were killing white people, okay? W.E.B. Du Bois explains how Originally, World War One, which started in 1914, I believe it was 1914 when World War One started. It was originally supposed to be fought in 1897. Now, what is so important about 1897? Please pardon me. I'm going to pause. I'm going to see if anyone in the comments knows what is so important about 1897 regarding Africa. Let me get to the comments. Let me see. Does anyone, any of our viewers right now, I'm looking at the comments on Facebook, do you know, can anyone type in the chat area the importance of 1897? If you're calling yourself a new Black Panther or a student of Brother Khalid or a Black nationalist, or you say that you love Africa, you have to know the significance of 1897. So the 13 people that are watching us right now in the comment section, how many of you know the significance of 1897 and what it has to do with this particular point of the 10-point platform? I'm gonna wait. Okay, anyone, if you don't know, just say no. Say, I don't know. Wow, I can't get a response from at least one person. We got 12 people on. Okay, wow, okay, fine. I'll let you know the significance of 1897. The significance of 1897 is that in that year, the Berlin Conference took place, okay, Germany. The Berlin Conference is where the leaders of the major European nations, the superpowers, got together and they decided they were going to carve out Africa, okay? And that is actually how I believe the birth of the Middle East came about. Okay, so England was at one side of the table, France was on this side of the table, Germany was on that side of was on this side of the table. Ukraine was here, Russia was there, and they said, you know what? This part of Africa is going to go to Russia. This part of Africa is going to go to Germany. That part of Africa is going to go to Italy. That part of Africa is going to go to Ukraine. This part of Africa will go to Russia, et cetera, et cetera. And this is how you got most of the current boundaries in Africa. Many of your African countries were founded as a result of this. And this is how many African countries were put under colonialism. Okay, going back several years ago, 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015, many of your African nations, West Africa in particular, were celebrating the 50th anniversary of their independence from European superpowers. Ghana, Nigeria, they were in that category, celebrating their independence from European superpowers, okay? So W.E.B. Du Bois explains in a previous book, it escapes me right now, in 1897, they were going to go to war over Africa. World War I was originally going to be fought between the European superpowers over Africa. And in his later book, The World in Africa, he explains to you the importance of Africa. You know, he goes into it in that previous book, but he goes into further detail. He sharpens it, he refines it in his book, The World in Africa. He explains to you Africa's place in the world, Africa's place in world affairs, the influence, the minerals alone, okay, the oil in Africa, the resources, the natural resources, the gold, forget the gold and the silver here and the diamonds. I'm talking about the rubber. I'm talking about the cocoa plants. I'm talking about elements that to this day, for example, cobalt, C-O-B-A-L-T. I believe cobalt is found in the Congo. That's used for powering your cell phones. And so he explains that the European superpowers and now China, just to let you know, China being in Africa is nothing new. The Chinese have been in Africa attempting to colonize Africa since the 1950s. Okay, you just been hearing about them recently. They've been in Africa since the 1950s, you know, building railroads in Nigeria and across the country. They're the new colonizers. And as Dr. John Henry Clark stated, Africa for thousands of years has been the breadbasket for the world, Europe in particular. We first saw that during the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire used Africa as a breadbasket. The gold that they, you know, the Romans were mining all across North Africa They used it as a breadbasket. The world is still using Africa as a breadbasket. Another book that you might want to read is by Walter Rodney, How Europe Underdeveloped Africa. Listen to that title again. Walter Rodney, Jamaican brother, blown up in a car under suspicious circumstances. He was a scholar. He used to teach here in America. He wrote a book, How Europe Underdeveloped Africa. He speaks about that, how they exploited, how, of course, that book came much later after the Voices. He explains how Africa's resources, were stripped, and to this day, it's still taking place. They can't strip it too much because of the fact that Africa, think about it. You have oil, gold, diamonds, rubber. You have stuff that's been under the ground literally for billions of years. So it's almost a limitless, am I saying vastless, or no, almost a limitless supply of natural resources. We're always talking about gold, silver, and diamonds, but I'm talking about basic things that are in Africa. That's what Muammar Gaddafi, our brother Muammar Gaddafi, that's what he was fighting against. That's why he was trying to fight for a united Africa. Muammar Gaddafi, stop saying that he was an Arab. And so we shouldn't trust him. Although Muammar Gaddafi apologized on behalf of the Arab world, Muammar Gaddafi is not an Arab. Muammar Gaddafi considered himself a black man. He was a Berber. You know what a Berber is? A Berber is nothing more than a black person, my complexion, somebody that's mixed with black and white or black and Arab. He's a Berber. He identified as black, as Dr. Leonard Jeffries, as Professor James Small, as Minister Louis Farrakhan, people that have been over there to meet with him. Okay, Muammar Gaddafi, those of you that love President Barack Obama, he helped orchestrate the killing of Muammar Gaddafi, who considered, Muammar Gaddafi considered himself a friend of African Americans. When you study the African Union that he was actually the head of, I believe he was the head of the African Union, which came out of the Organization of African Unity by Kwame Nkrumah, and I believe also His Excellency Emperor Haile Selassie of Ethiopia. They said the Organization of African Unity is where Malcolm X had borrowed the concept of his OAAU, the Organization of Afro-American Unity, from, that he and Dr. John Henry Clark had put together. They drafted it, the Constitution, I believe the Constitution, or the Charter, on the floor of Dr. John Henry Clark's house. Muammar Gaddafi sat at the head of the African Union, and what he was attempting to do, just to let you know, within the African Union, for those of you who may not be aware, there are 7 regions of the African Union. Africa is the first region. Then they give Asia another region. Then they give Europe another region. Okay. Then they give South America another. I'm trying to go, step by step. Make a long story short, Muammar Gaddafi considered Black people in this part of the world, in the Americas, African Americans, African Latinos, those of us that are in North and South America, in the Caribbean, he considered this as, according to the African unit, the African Union, pardon me, I almost lost my thought there. He considered this the 7th region. Black people in this part of the world who have been here for, this was a separate region for the African Union. There's 7 regions. He considered us to be the 7th region in the diaspora, if I'm saying it correctly. I believe it might be 7 regions, 6 regions in Africa. That's right. He considered diasporic Black people that are spread all over the world. He considered us region 7 of the African Union. He was about Black unity. And what Muammar Gaddafi was attempting to do, he was attempting to get Africans, to get Black people in Africa, Black Africans, to be able to take advantage of the resources of Africa and not let it be exploited. And some of you Black supporters of President Obama, the only thing we got out of that was an assassination of our brother. And what we got from Black people, we got African Americans, we got cyber. Some of y'all still don't have nothing to say about that. You have to study Africa, and of course, as so many people have made it clear, including Walter Rodney, he discusses slavery. The most important resource of Africa was us. African people, the transatlantic slave trade. He speaks about that. Another book that you can read, Basil Davidson wrote a book called The African Slave Trade. Very well-known book, he discusses that. The most important resource of Africa is us. So keep that in mind. If you're calling yourself a Pan-Africanist, if you're calling yourself a Garveyite, if you're calling yourself Attorney Malik Zulu Shabazz used the term a long time ago, a Khalid Mohammedite, if you say you love Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad, you better keep up with Africa affairs. As a Pan-Africanist, of course, we always have to keep up with the affairs of what's taking place. But remember, our ultimate goal is Pan-Africanism. I disagree tremendously with some of our brothers and sisters at ADOS or the FBA movements, because I'm noticing within those two movements, respectfully speaking, there was a huge anti-African sentiment from what I'm getting. And as people of African descent, we are one global family. That's what Brother Malcolm was advocating. That's what Malcolm X has stated that. He said that we belong to a world community. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that. Garvey, Du Bois was the one that had, he and Booker T. Washington, even Booker T. Washington had the first conference, the first Pan-Africanist conference called the Conference of the Negro. It was held in Philadelphia. And then after that, Du Bois, that was in the 1890s, but in the early 1900s into the 1940s, Du Bois was the one that started the Pan-Africanist conferences. He had the Pan-Africanist Conference, then the Pan-Africanist Congress. But if you're claiming to be a Panther, a new Black Panther Party, you have to study Pan-Africanism. You have to study the original Panther Party. Although I stated they may have lacked the practice of African culture, they still had Africa in mind. And there are many Black nationalists like that who may not be African-centered. They may not be into, quote, African culture, but they definitely understand the importance of Africa as our source. And I can name many of them. Let's go on. We believe, and we're still on point number 3. We believe that this wicked racist government has robbed us, and now we are demanding the overdue debt of reparations. A form of reparations was promised 100 years ago, 40 acres and a mule, as restitution for the continued genocide of our people, and to a meaningful measure and repair the damage for the African Holocaust, which I just referred to. We're quoting it right here, the Mangamizo Ma'afa, as I mentioned earlier. That means a terrible tragedy that was done on purpose. And of course, Amir Baraka oftentimes spoke about that. Our brother Amir Baraka, poet Amir Baraka. Okay. 1 second. Point number 3 is quite long. Okay, I'm gonna focus on this part of point number 3. Reparations. Now, I belong in Washington, D.C. I belong to the Washington, D.C. Recovery Act, which is headed by John Cheeks. He's a brother who's written a law on, we don't use the term reparations. We use an upgraded language we call a recovery. But in the new Black Panther Party, when I was active in the new Black Panther Party, we had relationships with such organizations as the DC Recovery Act, as well as in Cobra, as well as I'm trying to figure out another organization. I don't have time to look it up, but you have several organizations promoting reparations. Of course, the Nation of Islam under Minister Louis Farrakhan discusses that. Also, a key proponent of reparations, okay, that many people are unaware of, is the Honorable Minister Silas Muhammad of the Lost Found Nation of Islam, which is headquartered in Atlanta, Georgia. Minister Silas, for well over 30 years, okay, for well over 30 years has been a major voice in the reparations movement. He's actually going to the United Nations to plead our case, okay? And he refers to us, African Americans, as we are the Afro-Asiatic descendants. He calls it Afro-Asiatics, if you would, if I'm using the term correctly. But he's been on that strong, Minister Silas Muhammad. He, along with Cobra, and there's several other Black organizations that advocate that. I've actually covered reparations conferences. The Indaba conference of the early 2000s that was organized by several Black organizations, including NBUF, the National Black United Front, which was headed by our ancestor, Dr. Conrad Warrill, Ibaye Ashe, out of Chicago. He became an ancestor last year. and we had the honor of working very closely with him, Attorney Malik Zulus-Jabaz. We had the honor of working with him. They were on that hard. In fact, Dr. Conrad Warrow had edited or wrote a book called The Case for Reparations. Get that book, it's still in print. It's called The Case for Reparations. And he explains why we should be paid. In 2019, I was with Attorney Malik Zulus-Jabaz and the Movement for Black Power in Washington, D.C. on Capitol Hill. The Movement for Black Power is headed by our beloved sister, Attorney Amy Jenkins out of Washington, D.C. Okay, I attended that. I covered it, but I attended it in support of getting payment for us. And of course, it was a all-day hearing. Okay, it was sponsored by the Congressional Black Caucus. Okay, Dr. Julian Malveaux spoke, Ta-Nehisi Coates has spoke, and quite a few people had spoke, pleading the case. Some people were there that were against reparations, including that brother, NFL player and a Trump supporter. I forgot his name. He said that he didn't support it. And then you had a younger conservative there. He didn't support reparations. Okay, so anyway, the reparations movement is nothing new. It's existed. Some would say that it's existed since we were let go, emancipation, but some would say that I believe that reparations is being advocated even during the antebellum period, which was, that was before Emancipation Proclamation. And it may have been advocated by the freedmen societies of the antebellum period. The freedmen societies are groups of Black people that, either they escaped, they were either granted freedom, they either were let free, or they purchased their freedom, or they escaped, and they formed societies or Black communities of themselves. And that's why you have the term free men. Okay, if you notice, most people you meet in America who have the last name Freeman, Freeman, are Black people. So you have a Morgan Freeman, you have a Al Freeman. Al Freeman is the one that played the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, terrific actor, but he played, he even played Malcolm X in Roots. Okay, Asada Shakur, she's a Freeman. A lot of people don't know that. Okay, she's descended from a group of freemen out of Wilmington, North Carolina. Yes, because UNC, Wilmington, North Carolina. That's actually where Dr. Ben Chavis' family is from too. Okay, so anyway, the reparations thing has been around for quite some time. Okay, and so I've had the honor of working with these organizations. Now, along with the reparations packet, there are various versions of reparations. Some people say we should get cash payment. Some people say we should get free education. Some people say that we should get free medical benefits. We should be granted land, as was proposed originally when we discussed the 40 acres and a mule plan that never took place. And of course, that's the name of Spike Lee's company, 40 Acres and a Mule. That's where he's getting that from. Some people say we should be exempt from paying taxes. Okay. There's a god sister of mine. She said every time they call her up about some loan, about some debt, she always tells them, look, take that out of my reparations. I said that to Kevin Powell one time, when Kevin Powell said that he had to pay off a credit card bill or something, and I commented under his post, tell him to take it out of your reparations. I saw him later that night. He thought it was funny. He shouted me out. Shout out to Kevin Powell, because Kevin Powell actually, I believe he supports the reparation movement. I don't want to mistake him. I got to give him a call to see what his view is on that. Okay, so here we go. We believe our people should be exempt from all taxation as long as we are deprived of equal justice under the laws of the land and the overdue reparation debt remains unpaid. We will accept payment in fertile and mine, rather rich land, precious metals, industry, commerce, and currency. See, I just spoke about the whole land thing. Many people believe that reparation is best given as land. Okay. As genocide crimes continue, people's tribunals must be set up to prosecute and execute. Okay. Now, this right here was going to take us into our next point. Remember, after World War II, okay, after World War II, and this actually went on literally until like maybe 5 or 6 years ago, the white Jewish community had went after all those who were responsible for their Holocaust. I'm talking about if you were 80 or 90 or even like in your hundreds, they would come get you, and you would stand trial. Okay, you would actually stand trial for for the concentration camps. If you did something, if you were a Nazi during that time, and you were one of those that was sending them to the gas chambers, to the gas ovens, if you would, they would come find you. There was a movie about that called The Pupil. It was an old Nazi. He was a former Nazi. He had escaped, because a lot of them escaped and went to different parts of the world, and they assumed new identities. And The Pupil, he was it was about a young white boy that was interested. He was a young white supremacist, and he wanted to know what it was like being a Nazi. So when he found out that his old neighbor was a Nazi, he was in his 80s, he wanted to learn more about it. Okay, so it was called The Pupil. He wanted him to teach him what he knew. So this old Nazi, former Nazi, had escaped to America, assumed a new identity, and at the end of the movie, make a long story short, at the end of the movie, I think he had a heart attack. That's what it was. He had a heart attack, and so he was in the hospital. And so when he regained consciousness, okay, he was, when you're in the hospital, sometimes you get a roommate, and so he was speaking to his roommate. The roommate, saw that he came in the room. He said, "Hey, how you doing? Where you from?" "Oh, I'm such and such." He heard his accent. And he said, "Wait a minute." He said, "You're German." He said, "You sound like you could be South German." Okay. So the dude went to sleep, talking about the former Nazi, right? And the dude in the next bed had got out of his bed to see what he looked like, because he reckoned, he was a German Jew. Okay. He was a German Jew, and he could recognize the former Nazi's accent. So when he got out of the bed and walked to the other side to see what he looked like, he had a fit. And started crying. Literally, he started crying. "Oh my God," because he recognized them from the concentration camps. This was a German Jew who he was in the concentration camps during their Holocaust, and he recognized this Nazi. And so they fingerprinted. What happened was, when he woke up, the Nazi, he was surrounded by all these feds. Like, what's going on? And he looked at his hands. He saw it was fingerprinted. Okay, because they had to make sure that it was him. Okay. So he had to stand trial. Well, he ended up killing himself because he didn't want to stand trial. So my point is, whenever Black people are discussing our oppression, we always expect to be so forgiving, so kind, so understanding, but other communities that doesn't apply to. Okay. That was the point that I was coming at. The white Jewish community went after people that did that to them. And I'm talking about, I think that the last Nazi was found less than 10 years ago. He may have been found in the last 10 years. He might have been like a 95 or approaching 100. And they still went after him. They said, no, bro, you got to stand trial. Okay. Yeah, this happened in the last decade. It might have been within the last 5 years. So that takes us to this point. The Jews were given reparations, as in European Jews. The Japanese were given reparations. Okay. Remember, just to let you know, it is actual fact that the white Jewish community here in America and Japanese, they are still being paid from things that took place 70 years ago. Okay. 70 years ago, they're still being paid with your tax dollars. Okay. But African Americans who built the country, okay, we can't be paid, quote, with tax dollars. Okay. But study that reparations movement. The Black, the red, and the brown nations must be given reparations. The American white man owes us reparations. England owes us reparations. France owes us reparations. Spain and all of Europe, Africa owes us reparations and repatriation. The Arabs owe us reparations. The European Jews owe us reparations. All are taking part in the African Holocaust and the slaughter of 600 million of our people over the past 6,000 years in general and 400 years in particular. We know that this is a reasonable and just demand that we make at this time in history. I can't get no more clearer than that, family. Point number 4. One second. Before I get to point number 4, let me see what people are saying in the comments on Facebook. Oh, okay. People seem to be quiet tonight, Brother Minsu. My goodness, but we have 16 people on. Oh, one second. We have 21 comments? Hold on. I didn't see that before. Hold on, family. Let me see what these comments are saying. Oh, okay. Okay, Black Power, Sister Oye. magnificently black, black power. He does have blood in his hands. Yasuki Shakur, didn't you have a birthday? Okay, I'm getting back to the lesson. D. Ellis, Wesley, Black Power, to all those who were tuning in. Queen Mother, Black Power, Hotel. Okay, let me get back to the platform. Point number 4. We want decent housing, fit for shelter of human beings, free healthcare, preventative and maintenance. You know, right now, family, we're having a housing crisis in America, and COVID has actually made it worse. Okay, it's actually made it worse because when people couldn't get back to work, going back 2 years ago, and remember the housing moratorium. Am I saying correctly? I don't like mispronouncing words, but you know what I'm talking about. The housing freeze on landlords being able to collect money. Remember, that only lasted for like maybe 3 or 4 months. It might have lasted for a few months rather, but they had to, you know, since people couldn't go to work. Okay, remember, since people couldn't go to work, you had a lot of people that couldn't pay their rent, and people ended up getting evicted, whether it was illegal or not. Landlords started coming for people's necks. Okay, so as people of African descent, remember now, if you're a student of the original Panther Party, if there's anything that the Panther Party advocated, it was tenants' rights. Okay, tenants' rights. And a lot of original Panthers were organizing their buildings. You know, many of them might have lived in public housing. They might have lived in buildings. They might have lived in apartment complexes, and they were organizing tenants groups. Okay, the original Black Panther Party had a lot to do with that on a national level, organizing tenants. Okay, they you know, this is when you start organizing tenants. That right there is what you refer to as grassroots organizing. Okay. When you're literally organizing your building, organizing your block, your neighborhood, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, there's a lot of power with those tenants associations. If you know, support your tenants association or start one. Okay, because those tenants associations, they get things done. Okay, you can actually, if you're being charged unfair rent, say if you're being charged high rent for low quality housing, your tenants organization can organize to cause your landlord or your landlady to get themselves together. Healthcare. Healthcare right now is a multi-billion-dollar industry. Okay, there's something that Dr. Ali Muhammad would always say. He's the former Nation of Islam Minister of Health out of Washington, D.C. He has the Abundant Life Clinic. He does a live stream himself. He's mentioned many times that most of these medicines are designed to make you better, not well. Okay, we have to start studying holistic health, family. Study both. Study the quote regular health, study holistic health, because you may not afford to get that cancer treatment drug. You may not afford to get that high blood pressure medicine. So you're going to have to turn to holistic health. Start fasting. Get your diets together, family. Okay, there were a lot of people I know that beat COVID from holistic health, but they didn't get COVID at all from holistic health. We want to end to the trafficking of drugs and to the biological and chemical warfare targeted at our people. You know what? I was supposed to interview Rick Ross in 2014 about this very subject, the real Rick Ross. Remember him? Gary Webb was that journalist, my colleague who wrote that book several years ago discussing the CIA's war on Black people. And of course, what's his name? John Potash wrote a book on that. He wrote a book he called The CIA's War on Entertainers, discussing how the CIA made a lot of entertainers, like a lot of revolutionary ones, such as Jimi Hendrix and Janis Joplin, how they literally made them into drug addicts. They provided them with the drugs to get them distracted and eventually causing them to have an OD. Biological chemical warfare, but like I said, Rick Ross, he was the one, remember? He exposed that in the 90s, but he was a part of that. He said that the CIA propped them up, to sell drugs to Black people, the crack era, that many people have said. Rick Ross has stated that. And Maxine Waters in the 90s, she began having public meetings on that, saying that the United States via the CIA was turning Black people into crackheads. And many people will tell you, what's his name? Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North, the Iran-Contra that took place in the 80s. That's when I was a little kid, 85, 86. I was 8, 9 years old. Remember the Iran-Contra hearings? They said the Contras, they were in South America, Iran-Contra South America, as well as I think it was in Iran. They were exchanging weapons for drugs, something like that. It was a big mess. Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North, he didn't go, I don't think he did any jail time, but people say he was the fall guy. He's a Republican conservative. He's still talking that nonsense. That situation didn't humble him. And then also chemical warfare, when we discuss HIV and AIDS, Dr. Jack Felder, who was a good friend to the new Black Panther Party, his son, his brother Nova Felder out of Harlem on 125th Street. Dr. Jack Felder in 1992 wrote a book on AIDS, the origin of the AIDS virus. He received death threats. I was supposed to interview him about that. We lost him like maybe 4 or 5 years ago. Might have been 3 years ago. Dr. Jack Felder, he wrote a book on that. Look his name up and definitely look up Dr. Ali Muhammad. Dr. Ali Muhammad has lectured extensively on the origin of HIV and AIDS. Minister Farrakhan, in fact, when he was the minister of Muslim Affairs in Washington, D.C., Minister Farrakhan gave him a 2 years leave of absence to go to Africa and research the Kimron drug out of Kenya. This was the drug that was supposed to eradicate AIDS and HIV. And to this day, Dr. Aleem has a treatment for AIDS and HIV. There's a sister that used to be with the new Black Panther Party, a nurse, Sister Fatima Abdul out of Philadelphia. She used to send people, she would speak to meetings, she would have public meetings, but she would speak to the new Black Panther Party. And she said that her organization sent people to Africa to get the cure for AIDS. The concept of chemical warfare was nothing new. It happened to the Native American, our red brothers and sisters. Look up General Amherst. He acted like he was giving Native Americans gifts. He gave them blankets, for the wintertime, but he had smallpox injected in the blankets to get rid of them, the Tuskegee experiment. Now, brothers and sisters, I'm going to tell you something about the Tuskegee experiment, okay? In the Black conscious movement, we have to be very careful that we don't perpetuate urban legends, if you would. We always have to know what we're talking about. One thing I learned from Tapper Smiley, who was my idol when it comes to journalism. Had it not been for Tapper Smiley, I never would have become a journalist. Tapper Smiley says, always do your homework. Always do your homework. The Tuskegee experiment was not the government injecting Black people with syphilis. That's not what it did. It was an experiment. They were experimenting on Black people, but they didn't inject us with syphilis. That's incorrect, okay? The Tuskegee experiment was, there were 400 Black men that had the most severe or the most virulent form of syphilis, and the United States government, who keeps calling me? Hold on, family. The United States government knew that these brothers had syphilis, and they gave them the impression that they were treating them for syphilis, which they were not. They were giving them, I guess, a fake medicine or water in the needle, acting like they were treating them. No, what they did was they took these 400 brothers with syphilis, made them think they were giving them a treatment, and they were observing the effects of syphilis. Okay, and they used Black people to do it. So keep in mind, yes, it was an experiment, family, but it was not the United States injecting us with syphilis. These brothers already had syphilis, okay? And like I said, the United States led them to believe that they were being treated for syphilis, but no, the United States, one of the departments, I don't know if it was the Department of Health that was engaging in this, but what they said was they acted like they were giving treatment to these brothers, but they weren't giving treatment to them. They just, they wanted to see the effects on syphilis, how syphilis would affect people if left untreated, okay? That's what that was about. It was still an experiment. And keep in mind, though, that Black people have been experimented on in America for centuries. That's what gynecology came about. Look up gynecology. That white man that created gynecology, I think his statue was somewhere near Central Park, and they took it down. Gynecology, which is that is, a lot of men may not know this, but unless you have children, your lady or your wife has children, gynecologist or gynecology that's women's health. It focuses on women. It was started by a white doctor who was experimenting on Black women, torturing them. Okay, in the name of we talk about Jews or white Jews being experimented on during the Holocaust. We're being experimented on. Read the book The Man Not by Dr. Tommy Curry. He talks about how black men were experimented on. So in America, we have always been treated as guinea pigs. So that's where the chemical warfare, when we say biological and chemical warfare targeted at our people, this is not a quote, a Hotep conspiracy theory. This is a quote, Hotep conspiracy fact. See, some of you Negroes out there that love white folks, that that want to assimilate. Anytime you see us black nationalists or us Hoteps, as you like to call us, bringing this stuff up, you want to nickname us the Hoteps. You want to, mock and make fun of us and do videos about us and write articles like Damon Young. I had to jump in his behind before. And I mentioned in my article defending the so-called Hoteps when I was talking about Tuskegee, the counterintelligence program of COINTELPRO, crack cocaine era that Rick Ross had explained to us, and Gary Webb. I said, these are not conspiracy theories, these are conspiracy facts. And remember, Gary Webb, when he began writing, when he wrote that book, he began doing a series of, he was doing investigative reports on the CIA's involvement in the drug trade in America. He was discredited. He couldn't find work nowhere. He wrote a book. He couldn't describe work nowhere. And then they found him. They said he committed suicide. They said he shot himself in the back of the head with a shotgun. I'll let you decide. Okay, family. So as we continue with point number 4, we believe since the white landlords will not give decent housing and quality health care to our black community, the housing, the land, the social, political, and economic institutions should be made into independent or Ujamaa, new African communal cooperatives, so that our government, with government reparations and aid, until we can do for ourselves, can build and make drug-free, decent housing with health facilities for our people. See, that's that cultural nationalism, original Panthers. Once again, they were about that. Housing rights, tenants' rights. One second, I'm gonna go into we're at point number 5 now, family. Let me go into the Facebook chat. Let's see if anyone has anything to say. One second. Okay, thank you, Brother Ishmael. Salam alaikum. He's a student of the Honorable Minister Silas Muhammad. Thank you, Afro-descendant. But I thought he put, okay, thank you, Afro-descendant. I appreciate it, dear brother. Thank you. Let's see, Brother Derek Luster. It was started by the Fed's Freedmen's Bureau. Okay, one second, family. We only have a little while to go because we off at 9. Okay, let us continue. For those of you who are just now tuning in, my name is Dashan Farad, Black Power, Assalamu alaikum, Hotep, Shalom, Peace, Alafia, all Black laws for all Black people. I'm one of the instructors of the new Black Panther Party's Black Panther Liberation School, weekly Liberation School. We always come to you every Monday night from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern. I'm one of the instructors. I'm bringing you greetings on behalf of the national chairman of the new Black Panther Party, as well as the founder and executive director for Black Lawyers for Justice, attorney Dr. Malik Zula Shabazz. Both organizations are based in Washington, D.C. Tonight, we're discussing the 10-point platform of the new Black Panther Party. As I stated at the beginning of the class, this was borrowed heavily from the platform of the original party, almost identical with a few upgrades. When Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad had became the national chairman in 1998, our Black Power General, Ashe, he was responsible for the upgrading. He was primarily responsible for the upgrading of the 10-point platform. When he came into the new Black Panther Party, he made it more African-centered. And so you actually see this throughout the whole 10-point platform. But as you can see, they still borrowed heavily. He borrowed heavily from the original party. Okay, so we're going to continue. Number 5, we want education for our people that exposes the true nature of this devilish and decadent American society. You see this whole argument going on right now that conservatives, just to let you know, okay, whether we're new Black Panther, nationalists, African-centered, cultural nationalists, Black revolutionary nationalists, Hotep, whatever you want to call us, black people like us, we don't have love for either political party. Okay, so if you hear me criticizing Democrats, don't accuse me of being a Trump supporter. And if you hear me criticizing conservatives, don't, you might be a conservative tuning in. Don't accuse me of being a liberal. Okay. Within this realm of black revolutionaries, many of us vote, many of us don't vote. But those of us that, even the ones that do vote, we don't have love for any political part, for either white political party. Okay. And by that, I mean, Democrat, Republican, the Green Party, Communist Party, Socialist Party, because these are Democratic Socialists. These are parties that are still ran by white folks, and you're dependent on white people. Okay. So anyway, this whole thing now that Republicans and conservatives are talking about, they've been talking about for over a year now, critical race theory. Okay. This argument, just to let you know, we didn't need a critical race theory. We already had critical race theory of our own. We called it Afrocentricity, African-centered education, with Dr. Malefi Asante, who introduced us to he coined the term Afrocentricity or African-centered, as Dr. Clark preferred to call it, okay? Us discussing the true nature of America. We already knew this. So this attack on critical race theory, this is what we refer to as Johnny come lately, because this is nothing new, okay? They've been trying to erase the true history of America, okay? All right? They did it in the 90s, and they have black scholars that tried to do it. Okay, Dr. Henry Louis Gates, he was leading that attack. In the early 90s, Dr. John Henry Clark, Dr. Henry Louis Gates, or Skip Gates out of Harvard, and Dr. Leonard Jeffries, they got into a battle of words. In the newspapers, the New York Times, they were going at it, because Dr. Gates was attacking Afrocentricity, accusing it of being racist, black racism and black supremacy. Okay, and he ought to know better. Okay, because he's up there, at Harvard. Okay, with the, he's at the W.E.B. Du Bois Center. That's where W.E.B. Du Bois was the first African American to get a doctorate from Harvard. Carter Hugh Woodson was the second from Harvard. Okay, so anyway, we want education that teaches us our true history, and our role in the present day society. See, we already have scholars that do that. Okay, so the whole critical race theory thing, this fight against critical race theory is nothing new. We believe in an educational system that will give our people knowledge of self. See, that's Nation of Islam rhetoric, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, know thyself. Okay, some would say that, black people are gods, the original people, the mothers and fathers of civilization, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, that's what it means when we say knowledge of self, who we are. What did we as black people do before slavery, before coming in contact with Europeans, before coming in contact with non-Africans? What was our role in the world? Okay, most black people, specifically most African Americans, or most black people in America, cannot tell you they cannot name 5 black civilizations that contributed to world civilization in the past 5,000 years. Most of us can't do that. If we do not have knowledge of self and of our position in society and the world, then we have little chance to properly relate to anything else. Something that Sheikh Anta-Diop stated, I think he said it in in his book, The African Origin of Civilization. He said that black people will never be free until we do with ancient Egypt what white people did with ancient Greece. Keep in mind now, ancient Egypt, or Kemet, was not the only advanced ancient African civilization. It was the most advanced. But as Dr. Maulana Karenga and Professor James Smalls and Dr. Leonard Jeffries had told me last month when I interviewed them, actually it's Professor Smalls in particular that said that Kemet was not the only advanced civilization, ancient African civilization. It was the most advanced. You had other ancient African civilizations before that, such as Aksum, Nubia, okay, various, Abyssinia, okay. You had these various, Kush. These are ancient African civilizations, of course, that existed before and after Kemet. It's just that Kemet represented it represented the height of African antiquity, if you would. Antiquity means in the olden days. That's all that means. And that's what Greece represents, the white people. Okay. Now, for those of you that say, what black people always, you Afrocentric Black people, and you even hear this within the African Center community, that we're always trying to claim Egypt, and that's the only thing we want to be as Egyptians. No, I wouldn't say that. We use Egypt as a reference, just as white people use Greece and Rome as references. How many white people can say that they're descendants of ancient Greece? How many? But you will have a white Irish scholar give reference to ancient Greece. You will have a white Italian scholar give reference to ancient Greece. You will have a Jewish scholar make reference to ancient Greece because of what it represents. Okay, Greece is the mother of Western civilization, and I always refer to ancient Kemet as being the grandmother of Western civilization. I've always said that if Greece is the mother of Western civilization, then it's fair to say that ancient Egypt must be its grandmother. So that's the importance of knowing the significance of Kemet. And of course, Dr. Ben, in particular, he took Egypt out of Europe and put it back into Africa. And so, of course, when we have knowledge of self, we learn about ancient Kemet, we learn about Nubia, we learn about Abyssinia, we learn about Mali, Timbuktu, we learn about South Africa, Zululand, we learn about Carthage, we learn about Congo, we learn about Zimbabwe. All of Africa is ours, as Dr. Clark said. We study all of the civilizations, the advanced or ancient civilizations of Africa, those that came before, during, and after Kemet. All of it is important. Point number 6. We want all Black men and Black women to be exempt from military service. When you get a chance, I want you to look up Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad's lecture when he was the minister of Muhammad Mosque number 7 in Harlem. Goddamn Uncle Sam. And he speaks about this. And at the time, this was during the first Gulf War. And in it, he says that they call you to fight in Iraq, just say no. They call you to fight in Arabia, just say no. They call you to fight in Kuwait, just say no. Say, hell no, we won't go. God damn Uncle Sam. Okay. We believe that Black people should not be forced to fight in the military service to defend a racist government that holds us captive and does not protect us. We will not fight and kill other people of color in the world who, like Black people, are being victimized by the white racist government of America. We will protect ourselves from the force and violence of the racist police and the racist military by any means necessary, okay? Now see, this reminds you of what Muhammad Ali stated. He said, ain't no Viet Cong ever called me nigger. And keep in mind, when we discuss Dr. King's evolution, Martin Luther King's evolution, one of the things that got him to turn when he gave his lecture April 4th, 1967 at Riverside Church in Harlem, okay, that's still there. Why I opposed the war in Vietnam. Okay, Kwame Ture was there, formerly known as Stokely Carmichael. King was speaking to gang members when he visited Chicago, Los Angeles. He was going to different parts of the country, and they were saying, Dr. King, you're telling us to be nonviolent here against an enemy that we see, but they're trying to force us to go to another country and fight an enemy that we don't see, someone who's never done anything to us. See, when Muhammad Ali has stated, ain't no Viet Cong ever called me a nigger, he wasn't alone. That was the sentiment that many Black people had about going to war. And remember, that was one of the things that Brother Malcolm spoke about in Message to the Grassroots when he was criticizing the civil rights movement and King for being nonviolent. What did King say? He said, you're going to talk nonviolence here, as violent as you were in Korea, as violent as you were in Japan and in Germany, but you're going to be violent here. And many of the civil rights leaders resented Brother Malcolm for that, because he pointed out that contradiction, if you would. And right now, you see this war going on between, once again, Ukraine and Russia, that many people say is going to get worse. Many Black people, go online. You have some foolish Black people that care about the Ukrainians, even though they're mistreating us over there. You see them mistreating us, like Joanne Reed, trying to blame Africans for how they're being treated by the Ukrainians. Okay, I don't feel any sympathy for Ukraine, because they represent the same forces that have been enslaving and oppressing Black people for centuries. I feel no love for Ukraine. I'm not in that war. We have an enemy that we're fighting here. And that is the sentiment as I speak to brothers and sisters from across the country. Okay, that is the sentiment that we have. You know, we have a war that we're fighting here. Getting shot down by police unnecessarily, getting bullied by white women, Karens, losing our life over dumb stuff at the hands of demons. And you want us to fight in an unjust war? And then you turn right around and you know, what gets me about a lot of Black people now that who love to belittle Malcolm X or Black Panther Party. You know, you say that you love Dr. King because he was nonviolent, but you're a veteran of a war, but you're in the military. How are you praising Dr. King for being nonviolent and criticizing Brother Malcolm and the nationalists and the Black Panthers? Oh my God, those Black nationalists believe in fighting back, but you're currently in the military. You boast and brag about being a veteran. See, this is one of the reasons why the Black Panther Party was very dangerous, because they were pointing out these contradictions of American democracy. Malcolm X was pointing out the contradictions of American democracy or American racism. Elijah Muhammad, Garvey, all of them were doing that. Karenga, Du Bois. You know, so this is the sentiment, you know, the original Panther Party, they had that sentiment. And also too, a lot of people don't understand, you actually had a lot of original Panthers who were draft dodgers. As was the former president, Bill Clinton. He was a draft dodger. Some people have even said that about Trump. Some people said that about Trump and Bush too. I think Bush got out the war. You know, Bush, technically he wasn't a draft dodger because of the fact he was in the Air National Guard, but he never went over there. But of course we know more than likely that was because of his daddy. But Bill Clinton, he went to Canada. And I can remember when I was 15 years old, when Clinton had took office in 1993, Clinton had spoke, when he first took office in DC, he spoke to a group of veterans that were his age, Vietnam era, because yeah, he didn't draft, but he had dodged Vietnam. You know, he's from that era. You know, Clinton is like 73, 74. That's that Vietnam era, okay? So a lot of them guys are like, you know, they're like in their early to mid 70s. So he has spoke, this is in 1993. I remember watching it. He spoke to a room full of veterans and they gave him no respect. They literally did an about face. Literally, they did an about face. They turned their backs on him because he drafted, you know, because he dodged the war. And they were like, we had to go. You could have went too. How come you, what makes you so special? But there were a lot of Black people that went, there were a lot of folks that went to jail. A lot of Black people went to jail for that. Okay, and they wouldn't be considered nationalists. They wouldn't be considered militant. They had common sense. It was a similar sentiment during World War I. The first time that America went to war with Germany, there were Black people that were like, no, because remember at that time, that's when the lynchings were approaching. The lynchings were like were approaching a zenith at that time. When World War I took place, 1912, 1913, 1914, during that time period, that was, and I believe that was during the time period of the bloody summer. In that time frame, that time period, you have Black people that are like, no, we're not going to fight against Germany. Hell no. Du Bois, on the other hand, came back and said, look, Black people should fight because he said that, no, we have a stake here. Since we built America, we should fight to defend America. But there were many Black people that said, hell no. And you still have many Black people that say, hell no. So the Nation of Islam and the Black Panther Party, they voiced that sentiment. Like, no, we're not fighting in any unjust wars against other non-white people. That's what Ali was saying. Ain't no Viet Cong ever called me nigger. It's amazing how here we are over 50 years later discussing police brutality and harassment. It's still taking place. That's point number 7, by the way. We want to end to police brutality, police harassment, brutality, and murder of Black people. We're dealing with this over 50 years, nearly 60 years, because the Panther Party was founded 1966, October 15th, 1966. Here we are, nearly 60 years later, still dealing with this here. We want to end to black on black violence. Snitching, cooperation, and collaboration with the oppressors. See, for those of you that say that black people only get mad whenever white people kill us, that's wrong. As a journalist and as an activist, I've traveled across the country covering demonstrations and programs with black people, black organizations addressing black on black crime or black self-genocide. And by the way, black people are not the only ones that kill each other, okay? We just used the example earlier, World War I, World War II. Whoever you live amongst is more than likely, that's who you're gonna be killed by. It isn't that black people are so special, so degenerate that we're just killing each other. You know, we have white on white crime, Asian on Asian crime. We saw that, and you know how they talk about Chicago? Conservatives and some of y'all love talking about the violence in Chicago, okay? Chicago has always been violent. My Chicago heads, holler if you hear me. Chicago's been violent since the 1920s. What do you think The Untouchables was about? With Sean Connery and Kevin Costner. And before that, Robert Stack. Remember, there was a movie that came, you know, it was a show that came on in the 50s. Robert Stack, Elliot Ness. Chicago's always been off since the days of the mafia, when Al Capone and them were killing each other. The Italian mafia, they were the different mafia families were killing each other. The Irish mafia families were killing each other. That's nothing new. The Godfather. Chicago's always been off the chain. That didn't start with black people. White men were killing each other in mass. We believe we can end police brutality in our community by organizing black self-defense groups, black people's militias that are dedicated to defending our black community from racist, fascist, police, military oppression and brutality. Okay, see this right here, you know, Brother Collar would always say, if everyone was armed in the black community, you wouldn't have to worry about anybody killing us, whether it be an ignorant Negro, or whether it be a white racist officer or a black officer with a white racist mentality. And one thing the original Panther Party did teach, they taught gun laws, gun safety laws. You know, last week, that was the topic of the last week's class that I had the honor of teaching. And I actually spoke with 4 experts dealing with gun laws and self-defense training. The Panther Party, before you were given a gun in the original Panther Party, they gave you a book to read. The guns came later. They wanted you to be trained. You had to know certain laws, the gun laws of your state. And you hear people saying this all the time. A lot of black activists know the gun laws of your state. If you have a felony, if you have a record, there's certain loopholes you can go around. Learn the gun laws of your state, family. You know, if you go on YouTube, you see white folks teaching their little babies how to handle weapons, how to shoot targets. Some say how to shoot you. The Second Amendment, though, make sure you know your gun laws. The Second Amendment, as we say, the Second Amendment of white America's Constitution gives a right to bear arms. We therefore believe that all black people should unite and form an African United Front and arm ourselves for self-defense, as other communities do. This is nothing new. Nothing new at all. Before I get to point number 8, just to let you know, we've had various African United Fronts before for decades and decades. That's why, out of Chicago with Conrad Woodrow, the National Black United Front, they're still around. I'm talking about they're strong. That organization is strong. But the new Black Panther Party has always advocated that. Even the original Panther Party advocated that. A federation, if you would. That's what, Garvey, the full name of Marcus Garvey's organization was the Universal Negro Improvement Association / African Confederation League. The UNIA was supposed to serve as an umbrella organization for all black organizations at that time. Now, keep in mind, Garvey had the largest black organization in the history of the world. And even though many organizations were borrowed from him subsequently after that time, he wasn't the only organization. The UNIA was not the only black organization. Okay, you always have pockets of Black folks organizing around self-defense, self-determination, going back to Africa, nationalism. It's just that Garvey did it on a much larger scale. He did it on a global scale. 3 to 5 million people. He boasted that his organization had boasted 3 to 5 million people. Sea Line, he had a fleet of ships. I said Sea Line. He printed his own money. But he wasn't the first one, like I said. But there were other organizations besides his organization. It's just that other organizations subsequently will borrow from his. But he still believed in forming a international Black United Front. So I'm going to getting to the live chat. Okay, no one. We have 20 people on here. Anybody have any questions so far? Anyone in the chat, let me know if you have any questions. Okay, I'm going to get back because we have 3 remaining points left. Excuse me, family. Okay. Thank you. Okay, somebody said some other stuff. 1 second, okay, this stuff is popping up. Yeah, Sister Oye talking about Russia and Ukraine. She said that's a European war. It has nothing to do with us. That's right, Oye. And I love, Sister Oye, you named after 2 Orishas, I see. That sister's not playing. Ashe. That sister's not playing. She named after 2 Orishas. Okay, I'm sorry, Blacknificent. He said he's speaking to someone else. Oh, Sister Amber, Black Power. How do you fight for other countries before you fight for your own people? That's right, Brother Chairman, the chairman of the Norfolk, Virginia chapter. That's right. Wow, what did Blacknificently Black said? Many nurses are fired from the vaccine, which many facilities are stating we are walking off our jobs. You said you're fired from the vaccine or for the vaccines? Oh, Blacknificent, thank you. The most powerful weapon is reading a book. Black Power, Sister Oye, Ashun, Ashe. That's right, read, family. The original Panther Party had emphasized reading all the time. You cannot call yourself a revolutionary, or some of you came to the new Black Panther Party because of from listening to videos of our Black Power General, Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad. Okay, Brother Khalid was an avid reader. Okay, remember, he was a professor. A lot of people don't notice about Brother Khalid. He was an associate professor at one of the California schools when he was the minister of Muhammad Mosque number 27. That's when he was the West Coast regional minister in the 80s. That's when he was still known as Malik Rushideen. He was an associate professor. He taught one of those campuses. Okay, so Brother Khalid was an average reader, and I'm noticing that a lot of us in this new activist generation, we don't like reading. We think that YouTube is a credible source. Okay, if you're calling yourself a student of Brother Khalid Abdul Muhammad, okay, if you're calling yourself an activist or a revolutionary, you have to read, you have to study. There's no way around it. A lot of us want to boast and brag that we're the mothers and fathers of civilization, but you want to clown somebody who has so-called education, who goes to college, or somebody that likes to read a lot. You have to read. You have to read books, whether you're in college or not. You can't keep using that excuse, oh, I didn't go to the white man's college. Going to the white man's college has nothing to do with it. Minister Farrakhan said that he would be with Malcolm when Brother Malcolm would be speaking at these white universities, Rutgers, Harvard, Princeton, Yale, Brown. He was speaking at the white man's best colleges, best universities, debating with people, with white folks that had doctorates, and he would handcuff them. Okay, and so Minister Farrakhan explained, just to let you know, they would come up to him. Malcolm would say this, like, Mr. X, where's your alma mater? Meaning, what college did you go to? And Malcolm was like, oh, I never went to college. And they would jump back. They couldn't believe that this man never went to school. because Malcolm was so well read, not just well spoken, he was well read. And as Minister Farrakhan said, Malcolm was able to out debate or handcuff people that read Shakespeare, Plato, Socrates. Shakespeare, Plato, Socrates, because Malcolm had read Shakespeare's Plato and Socrates. He knew their thinking. You have to read. No way around it. You have to read. You can't stay on YouTube. And that's one of the, I'm gonna be honest with you. Somebody said something wild to me yesterday, and I got very annoyed because somebody had the nerve to tag me in something yesterday, telling me on Instagram, they celebrated the other day Harriet Tubman's 200th birthday. She actually passed away. Her anniversary of her death was maybe 3 days ago, but they don't know when her birthday was. So they know the year that she was born, but usually they celebrate her birthday on the anniversary of her death. So she would have been 200 years old. And so, I honored that. I actually put it, Instagram. I put up a picture. I put up the picture of her funeral, and somebody tagged me in the post underneath saying, Brother Dashan, so-and-so said that Harriet Tubman never existed. I said, okay. I said, so you mean to tell me that people just imagined her and all that? And, I went to this fool's page, the one that this person told me to go to. And first of all, I got annoyed with this brother for tagging me like that on Instagram, number one, because why would you send, me being a journalist, please understand. You just can't say anything to me as a journalist and as an activist. I'm a writer, okay? You just can't give me take my word for it, okay? You just can't tell me anything, okay? Because I'm gonna ask you, where's your source, okay? So according to this fool that he had tagged me, whose name he had tagged me and telling me that so-and-so said this, I'm like, bro, why would you tag me in this knowing that, brother, he's not even a credible source. He's saying that Harriet Tubman or Nat Turner, they didn't exist. So, I want to see your proof. I want to see your primary sources. I want to see your secondary sources. Okay, I want to see your qualitative evidence. You have to prove to me what research methods did you employ to reach this conclusion. Okay, always remember, brothers and sisters, whenever you're researching something, you have to employ what is referred to as research methods. Okay, your research methods is what you use to draw your conclusion, how you gather your information. Okay, so you have what is referred to primarily, if you're getting your master's or you're getting your doctorate, you're gonna learn how to what is referred to as qualitative research and quantitative research. Qualitative research is you getting books, reading books, articles, interviewing people, you getting magazines, you getting clips. Quantitative method or quantitative research is when you're doing numbers, graphs, percentages. You understand what I'm saying? Fractions. You might say 80% of African Americans are going to be married by the year 2050, and that's your quantitative evidence, if you will, research when you're dealing with numbers. But oftentimes, when when you're doing, say, historical documents, you're going to be using qualitative. Okay, you're not going to be using statistics too much as you do when you're doing the quantitative stuff. Quantitative, that means numbers. Quant, Q-U-A-N, prefix, that usually means counting, money. Not money, but numbers. Whereas your qualitative research, like I said, you're reading books, you are reading primary sources. Okay, so brothers and sisters, if you're calling yourself a Black nationalist or an activist or a student of Khalid Muhammad, you have to read and study, you have to research, okay? Because Garvey and Malcolm and Khalid and Ben Clark, Dr. Jeffries, Professor James Small, Dr. Marimba Ani, Drusilla, okay, William Leo Hansberry, Du Bois, Carter G. Woodson, Arthur Schomburg, so many of J.A. Rogers. They didn't have the internet to depend on, okay? They had to travel, they had to read, they had to spend hours in a library or get tons of books home, okay? So you have to, before you make these wild conclusions, brothers and sisters, you have to know what you're talking about. And unfortunately, we have too much of that within the Black conscious circles. People just saying anything, okay? People just saying all types of stuff. And I'm talking about people, you have a lot of us with degrees who know better. We're supposed to know better. Hold 1 second, man. Somebody keeps calling me and I got to keep. Anyway, so what I'm saying, brothers and sisters, be very careful, because you know why? In 1995, no, 1996, there was a book that came out. I think it was 95. It was when I was in high school, called Not Out of Africa, written by Dr. Mary Lefkowitz. Brother Khaled used to call her another name, but she's a white Jewish woman that wrote a book asserting, she said that Afrocentric scholars teach myth as fact. Okay, now it never occurred to her that this is what European scholars or Eurocentric scholars have been doing for centuries. Okay, it never occurred to her in her Eurocentric mind that this is what y'all been doing for centuries. But she felt the need to write a book lambasting. That's right. When I mentioned the attack on Afrocentricity, when we talk about the attack on critical race theory, that's right. When I was mentioning Henry Louis Gates attacking Dr. Leonard Jeffries and Dr. John Henry Clark, and they got to a back and forth, in print, writing stuff in the New York Times and other publications. Mary Lefkowitz was also a part of that attack that took place, that you would see in the early and mid 90s, okay, of scholars, many of whom were white and a few black, attacking Afrocentricity. So she wrote a book saying that, when Afrocentric scholars say that Plato and Socrates and Socrates, Aristotle they all studied in Egypt, that's a lie, and Greek philosophy didn't start in Africa, all that, that's a lie. Okay, she put out a lot of that, and unfortunately, I'm noticing a lot of Black folk are actually helping that to reemerge, if you would. Okay, you have some confused Negroes now that are actually siding with her despite the evidence against that. Okay, they may not know that they're siding with her, but they're regurgitating the same rhetoric that she was regurgitating well over 20 years ago when I was a teenager. Okay, my point is that those of us that are in the Black conscious movement, whether we be nationalists, whether we be Afrocentric, Nation of Islam, Morris, followers of Dr. York, whatever you want, 5%, etc., the conscious movement, Kemetic, if you would, African spirituality, etc., etc. You have to know what you're talking about, because as a professor of mine said to me one time, when I was in North Carolina Central University, she said, baby, you don't want to leave room for Mary Lefkowitz. When you say something, make sure that you have your stuff intact. And I tell people that all the time, because I'm a writer and I write historical articles. I'm a journalist, but I also write historical articles, that can be published in academic journals. Okay, my professor, a beautiful sister, when I was in North Carolina Central University, she had told me that. She said, baby, she said, you don't want to leave any room for Mary Lefkowitz. When you say certain things, make sure, what she was telling me is to be right and exact. And I'm paraphrasing that part. And a lot of us within the Black consciousness realm, we're not right and exact. We say all types of crazy stuff and have no proof to back it up. Or if there is proof, it's weak proof. And by that, I mean, okay, you just can't use one or two examples. When you say that Harriet Tubman and Nat Turner did not exist, okay, don't put together no daggone video. Okay, I want to see the sources. I want to see people that said that these are myths. I want your books. I want to know what book titles, what article titles you're reading, that you're quoting, what journals, okay, magazine, newspaper clips. I want to see the proof that Sister Harriet Tubman did not exist. Just like some of you fools say that the slave ships didn't exist, okay? I want to see that, okay, produce one slave. It's funny that I'm talking about some of you Negroes will say that there's no proof that any of these slave ships existed. Okay, well, you never say that about the ship that the Pilgrims came on. Where's that ship at? Okay, a lot of us straight up, be wilding out, okay, on Facebook, on the internet, okay, and then when somebody asks you to present your proof, you want to get an attitude and get smart, okay? So you just can't say anything like that to an activist like myself. See, I'm Generation X, okay? I'm the first generation to use the internet, but I'm also the last generation to know how to research and go to a regular library without having to use the internet, okay? Dr. Greg Carr one time said that to me. Dr. Greg Carr, he's on Roland Martin show a lot. He's the head of African American Studies at Howard, okay? And he told me, he said, brother, the internet, he said, YouTube made us lazy. He said, brother, I remember when you had to travel to get a tape. You had to travel to New York to see Dr. Ben or Dr. Clark. And I agree with that. The internet has made us lazy, okay? And it's also, what I also noticed too with a lot of you is lack of humility, okay? Some of you that may be younger, you may be new to activism or new to consciousness, A lot of you have a certain arrogance about you that when someone tries to correct you or someone questions your sources, you get an attitude and react very hostile. Okay? If you're calling yourself a student of Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad, Brother Khalid was humble enough to listen to what you had to say. Brother Khalid, I disagree with this point you made based on this, that, and the third. He wouldn't snap on you unnecessarily. And we knew that Khalid can snap. He was very high strung like that. But Khalid was willing to submit to your wisdom, or he would listen to you even if he didn't agree with you. Okay? You have to be cracked, black, and exact, as Brother C Music, Foresight for Life in Washington, D.C. says. Okay? These folks that want to call us the Hoteps, okay, don't leave any room for them. These Negroes that want to mock black consciousness, in media, Damon Young, Michael Harriot, that want to say all types of derogatory things about black nationalists or Afrocentricity. We can't leave them any room. Okay, know what you're talking about, brothers and sisters. Don't give them any view. Know what you're talking about. Have your sources right in front of you. Have your sources on hand mentally. So when you make a claim, okay, to say, for example, some of these folks that want to dispute that Kemet was a black civilization, right away, oh, well, according to Sheikh Anta-Jiyab, an African origin of civilization, Gerald Massey, Ancient Egypt, Light of the World, Dr. Yusuf Ben Yakin, Black Man of the Nile, okay, J.A. Rogers, 100 Amazing Facts of the Negroes, okay, Albert Churchward, what is that? Primordial Man. You got to be able to have your facts right in front of you, family, which is common sense. If you went to high school, you couldn't graduate unless you did a term paper, okay? When you write a term paper, you got to give at least 5 sources, basic stuff, okay? So, don't try to throw it in our face. Well, you went to the white man's college, you college educated. Okay, stop using that as an excuse, brothers and sisters. You say we the mothers and fathers of civilization. We had the first colleges. The white man learned how to cite evidence from us. We got to stop it with these contradictions, family. But you got to be able to present your facts, present your evidence, okay? Right and exact, as they say in the Nation of Islam, a nation of gods or earths. We're getting ready to discuss point number 8. Let me get to the Facebook questions. Okay, live chat. We have 23 people on there. Let's see if anyone's saying anything. I think this might be having a delayed response because I remember when I stepped back from this, or something happened, the screen, it blinked for like 2 seconds and a bunch of comments have popped up. So let's see if we have any new comments or any questions that anyone, this is a classroom, family. Even though I'm teaching a class, please feel free to put questions in the chat room. The live chat, please feel free, because I'm getting ready to finish the last 3 points of the 10-point platform. Okay, I guess I'll go back to the lesson. For those of you who are just now tuning in, I'm Dashan Farad, and I'm one of the instructors of the Black Panther Liberation School, the weekly Monday night meeting from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. I bring you greetings on behalf of the national chairman of the New Black Panther Party and the New Black Panther Party for Self-Defense itself. He's also the executive director, founder and executive director of Black Lawyers for Justice, attorney Dr. Malik Zulu Shabazz. Both organizations are headquartered in Washington, D.C. We're on every Monday, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. I've been one of the instructors here for the past several weeks, going on a few months, I believe. Dashan Farad, I'm a journalist. I was a member of the New Black Panther Party, and I actually had the honor of serving at one point. I was the national assistant to attorney Malik Zulu Shabazz. Okay, point number 8, as we conclude, we're getting ready to conclude. We want freedom for all Black men and Black women held in international, military, federal, state, prison, federal, state, county, city jails, and prisons. I'm thinking about Jussie Smollett's case. Brothers and sisters, I want to know something. What do you think about the Jussie Smollett case? Okay, because I was on a call the other day on Clubhouse and I got very annoyed. No, I'm going to come back to that. I'll let you know what I was annoyed about. We believe that all Black people and people of color should be released from the many jails and prisons because they have not received a fair and impartial trial. Release means release to the lawful authorities of the Black nation. This is where we said we have to set up tribunals, and we actually have to set up our own if you would, law enforcement agencies, as do other communities, especially the Italians and the Jews. They actually have units within these communities that actually deal with the problems of the communities. They don't have to call the police in many cases. They deal with you themselves. So family, I want to know, what do you think about Jussie Smollett's case, okay? Because I was on the other day, right after he was sentenced, I was on a Clubhouse call, and they were saying that, well, that Black people are happy that Jussie is locked up, but they want R. Kelly to come out. And then they started the whole, well, the reason why so many Black people are upset with Jussie is that Black people are homophobic and they have nothing to say about R. Kelly. And I had to interject. Actually, when it was my time to talk, I had to explain to them. I said, no. I said, I've spoken with Black people that identify as gay or same gender loving or queer, because that was what was used, that Jussie is being hated because he's queer and Black people are homophobic. I said, I know Black people that identify as queer and straight who want, you know, they want to see both Jussie and R. Kelly locked up. Okay, so do you think he should be locked up? What I just said in point number 8, is Jussie Smollett, does he fall in this category? All Black people of color, even though, you know, many people say it's an apparent hoax. Okay, many of us are still debating that. But this has been debated too. Many people have debated the original Panther Party as well as the new Black Panther Party. When you say all Black people should be released, like in other words, does this include murderers? Does this include rapists? Does it include people that have committed severe crimes against their own community? And do we even have lawful, when we say lawful authorities of the Black nation, who will those lawful authorities be? Do we have that? Do we have that? Do we have that? Hold on, family. I'm going to go back to the chat. Let's see what people are saying. Okay, okay, looks like people don't seem to be commenting that much tonight. Okay, family, I'll go back to the 10-point platform. Point number 9, we want all Black people, when brought to trial, to be tried in a court by a jury of their peer group or people from their Black communities as defined by white law of the Constitution of the United States. We believe that the court should follow their own law if their nature will allow, as stated in their Constitution of the United States. And Brother Khaled would always say, which ain't worth the paper that is written on, so that Black people will receive fair trials. The 6th Amendment of the United States Constitution gives a man and woman a right to an impartial trial, which has been interpreted to be a fair trial by one's peer group. A peer is a person from a similar economic, social, religious, geographical, environmental, historical, and racial background. To do this, the court will be forced to select the jury from the Black community from which the Black defendant came. We have been and are being tried by all white juries that have no understanding of the average reasoning person of the Black community. Family, there was something that I said this maybe in December, it may have been in November. A long time ago, I heard Attorney Malik Zula Shabazz state, I was with him and I forgot where we were. We may have been in DC, might have been Baltimore, but we were somewhere. He was speaking to a large crowd, and it was black crowd. And he said, look, you know, brothers and sisters, you know, whenever you get these jury notices in your neighborhood, don't neglect jury duty. Don't try to get out of jury duty. We need to have some revolutionary, notice what I'm about to say now. We don't just need to have Black jurors, because we've seen that Black people in position of power don't always mean good things to Black people. We need to have revolutionary-minded Black jurors or Black people to serve on these juries, okay? To make sure that, yes, even though a sister and brother may be guilty of something, okay, but especially if they're innocent and they're being framed, okay, especially if we think they're being framed, but even if they are guilty of something, guilty of doing what they're being accused of, we have to serve on a jury to make sure that that sister or brother gets the same time as a white person or as an Asian who does the same crime, in other words, okay? We need revolutionary-minded Black jurors. So when you get that jury notice, brothers and sisters, and you're within our circle, within our thinking, You're African-centered, conscious, revolutionary, Pan-Africanist. Don't try to get out of jury duty, brothers and sisters. See what that, in your neighborhood, if you live in a predominantly Black city, metropolitan, an area where that we're getting locked up the most, so it might be a predominantly Black area, don't try to get out of jury duty. Like I said, even if that brother or sister is guilty of that, which, and if the crime is not too severe, like now, if you're a pedophile, if you murdered somebody, family, because, that wasn't a self-defense. So if you're a rapist, that's something different. Okay. Or if you're abusing children, okay, if you're an abusive person, that's something different, family. I'm not talking about that. But I'm talking about, you might have been a knucklehead. You might have robbed the liquor store or something, okay? You might have, you might have ran a stop sign, okay? You might have gotten into a fight. That's what I'm saying, okay? Make sure, we want to make sure that that brother or sister gets the same sentence that a white person up there, that a white person does. So don't try to get out of jury duty, brothers and sisters. Number 10, as we conclude, we demand an end to the racist death penalty as it is applied to Black and oppressed people in America. We demand freedom for all political prisoners of the Black, red, and brown nation. Brothers and sisters, contact the Jericho movement. Jericho, go to look up the Jericho movement online. I think that the JerichoMovement.org, but look them up. JERICHO movement. Jericho is the city of the Bible. If remember that, write it down. Jericho movement. They have a listing of all the political prisoners that we have. Brother Mumia Abu Jamal is the most popular political prisoner, but you've had people that have been serving time much longer than he has. They just finished freeing all the Africa members, the MOVE members, last year. Okay, the MOVE 5 or the MOVE 6 in Philadelphia. Okay, write to our political prisoners, visit them, write them, or go to the Jericho movement. They have a listing of all political prisoners, okay, in America. Some of these brothers and sisters have served past 50 years. In New Jersey right now, we're working on bringing home Sundiata Acoli. He was there on the highway that night, that day, when in New Jersey, when the state troopers tried to set up Assata. It was Assata Shakur, Sundiata Acoli, and Zaid Malik. Or Zaid Shakur, I'm sorry, no, it was Zaid Shakur, okay? Remember, they had to rescue Assata, okay? Now that right there, they had to rescue, she sought political refuge in Cuba, okay? We want land, bread, housing, education, clothing, justice, and peace. And as our political objective, we want national liberation in a separate state or territory of our own, here or elsewhere, a liberated zone, New Africa or Africa. Elijah Muhammad advocated that in the Nation of Islam, as well as the Provisional Government for the Republic of New Africa, which was headed by Dr. Amari Obadeli, Ashe. And the plebiscite to be held throughout the Black nation, in which only we will be allowed to participate for the purposes of determining our will and divine destiny as a people. Free the land. Up, you mighty nation. You can accomplish what you will. Black power. And according to this, history has proven that the white man is absolutely disagreeable to get along with in peace. No one has been able to get along with the white man. All the people of color have been subjected to the white man's wrath. We believe that his very nature will not allow for true sharing, fairness, equity, and justice. Therefore, to the red man and woman, to the yellow and to the brown, we say to you, the same rabid dog that bit you, bit us too. All power to the people. Now, that's Nation of Islam language right there. That's what I meant when I say the upgraded version to the 10-point platform. That right here is Nation of Islam language. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad had said that about the white man being absolutely disagreeable. Okay, New Black Panther Party, as was the original Panther Party, is an amalgamation of various Black schools of thought, if you would. Okay, so family, we're going to, this building's about to close, so we're going to get ready to end the broadcast. Let me go to the comment section, see if anyone left any comments. Okay, I guess not. In the 2 minutes we have remaining, brothers and sisters, family, my name is Dashan Farad. Please join us next week. We want to send you greetings on behalf of Attorney Malik Zulu Shabazz and the New Black Panther Party for Self-Defense. We'll be black, same black time, same black channel, Monday night, 7 p.m., 9 p.m. Eastern. Always a pleasure, family. Looking forward to joining you next time. Hotep, assalamu alaikum, shalom, alafia, all Black laws for all Black people, Black power. All power to the people.